Welcome back to another Sunday Reset. Here are all the meals and the snacks that I prepared to get my family ready for the week. I'm a full-time working mum of three, so anything that I can do to save time and money through the week, I do on a Sunday. This is my fridge on a Sunday morning, so as you can tell, it's quite empty. My process normally starts on either a Friday or a Saturday, where I'll first have a look through my diary at the week to come and determine how prepared I need to be and how much time I can allow each night to dedicated to cooking. To reduce waste and save money, I always look through my fridge, freezer, and pantry, making sure that I'm using up anything that I need to and also using what I can to save money. This helps me keep costs lower and it also saves me doubling up on things that I already have. As you can see, my pantry is very organized, which helps with this process. It helps me easily see what I have already and what I need to replenish. When I go through my pantry, I grab whatever I'm going to use in my meals that week off the shelf and bundle them into their meals. This saves me time on a Sunday, which I will show you a little later. Once I have an idea of the meals that I'd like to make, I write myself a shopping list ready to shop on the Sunday morning. So it's now Sunday, so I'm going to be taking you shopping with me. This week I shopped at Coles. Sometimes I do a click and collect and other times I enjoy going to the shops. My budget is $350 a week and I allow that every week to cover all meals, household and cleaning, toiletries and nappies. We rarely ever eat out because it's just so expensive as a family of five and would all prefer home cooked meals. As always, I give you my budget breakdown. This week I spent $2.90 on fruit. This is no way a normal weekly spend on fruit, but I had a surplus of oranges and green apples and my dad brought over some bananas, grapes and berries the day before. I spent $38.83 on vegetables. I spent $47.62 on meat. I did have some frozen chicken thigh and a butterflied Greek chicken in the freezer that I'm going to be using up this week. Toiletries I spent $19 and nappies $16. Nothing on cleaning and household, and I spent $4.80 on treats. Everything else came to $107.08. I often get asked what's included in the everything else category. It's pretty much all the pantry items, kids' snacks for lunch boxes, etc. If you think about the middle aisles of the supermarket, it's basically those items. So this week's total came to $236.23. To answer another one of your questions that I commonly get, when I'm under budget like this, I do allow the rest of the money in the budget to roll over to the next week or the week after, as there are some weeks that I do need to spend more to stock up, or there's weeks that we have friends over and want to splurge on different types of ingredients. As you saw earlier, I do have a well-established pantry, so even though I've spent the time and money in the past to establish it, I'm now enjoying the benefits by keeping my weekly shop lower. Instead of having to buy every single ingredient needed each week, I have a really good base of staple ingredients, and then I just buy the extras that are needed. Then in those stock-up shops that I mentioned earlier, I then replenish my back stock or whatever is running low. When I get home, I immediately unpack and wash my fruit and vegetables. I use the Koala Eco fruit and veg wash with cold water. You can also use cold water and bicarb soda or cold water and white vinegar to wash them. I soak them for 10 to 15 minutes while I pack other items away and prepare my ingredients. And what you can see going on behind me here is I get all the ingredients, or I leave out the ingredients when I bring them home for what I'm going to be cooking today. And then I'm going to grab the other pantry items that I had set aside to bring them out here as well. And then I put them into their different meals. So as you can see, it's kind of a little bit categorized there. So they're going to be in their different meals and what I need to do. Now, I always start with the recipe that's going to take the longest and work my way backwards. So normally that's actually one of the main meals. So today I'm making some Nandos chicken and halloumi rice bowls for my lunch. They will take a little while, but today the longest thing that's going to take is the orange cake. So I'm actually going to be starting on those first, and then I'll start with the orange cake because I need to boil some of the oranges. Just because we had so many oranges, so I'm going to make an orange cake and hopefully the kids like it. I like it, but hopefully the kids like it too. And then I will then start on the Nandos chicken and halloumi rice bowls for my lunches, and then I'll start on a couple of dinners as well. So that's what I'll do. I've got all my ingredients ready to go for my meals that I'm going to be making. I've even got some of the dishes out ready to go just so that I know that I've got the right size for what I want to make. I've only got the dishes out that I'm going to have to make the meals straight into. So for example, the panna cottas, the jelly for the kids. I've got some meal prep containers out here for my lunches and breakfast. So I've got those ready to go. All the containers to store all the other ingredients I don't have out. That doesn't matter till later. But I just wanted to say, if you are still overwhelmed by the process or getting started, and also to be efficient and keep on track, you can go one step further. And something that I did in the early days as well is you can pre-measure all your ingredients. So like for example, the orange cake here, you can pre-measure all your sugars, flours, everything like that. If that helps you with the actual process and to stay on track, then that's also totally fine and actually really normal to do. There's a French term, I can't remember the name of it, but there's a French term where it's basically getting all your ingredients laid out so that when you start cooking, you basically are just throwing it in and not worrying about any measuring out or anything like that. So definitely something that I have done on and off all like over the years, but it's definitely a helpful step if you are finding it a little bit overwhelming. By all means, do that. I have been working lately like this, where I get all my ingredients out and I've just got them bundled into the actual meals, so that when I'm ready to make that meal, I just grab the ingredients and go. So I'm about to get started, so let's do this. As I mentioned, I started with the orange cake because it will take the longest. This recipe I found on taste.com and it's called the whole orange cake. You start by adding cold water to a pot, add 2 oranges, bring to the boil, and then you repeat that. So you remove the water, add cold water again, bring it to the boil, and then that's why I started with that one, because it's going to take a little while. I moved on to getting my work lunches cooked and ready for the week. This week I'm having Nandos chicken and halloumi rice bakes. I'm making 5 of them, but I keep 3 in the fridge for Monday to Wednesday, and I put 2 in the freezer on the Sunday when I prepare this, and I thaw them out on the Wednesday just to keep them as fresh as possible. This recipe is found on my website, so you can go to www.theorganisedeverydayMum.com.au. I cook these in individual glass containers. I use the IKEA 365 glass range, and here I'm using the 1 litre rectangle container. I place the washed rice, marinated chicken, chicken stock, red capsicum, cherry tomatoes, and natural yogurt in the containers with a little bit of Nando's hot sauce on top, and stir. I cook in a preheated oven at 180 degrees Celsius for around 35 minutes until chicken is cooked and rice is tender. I allow them to cool before placing the lid on and storing in the fridge. I've been loving the individual meal preps like this. I've been experimenting with different sauces and spices. They're really easy if you want to give them a go. As long as you've got the rice versus stock levels right, they cook well and they are delicious. Whenever I meal prep like this, one of the biggest tips that I have for you is clean as you go. After I've made or prepped a meal, I clean my workstation. I make sure that I start the prep session with an empty sink and dishwasher just so I can clean up as I go. It saves the stress of having things everywhere, and let's be honest, who wants to clean mountains of dishes after prepping? The next meal I started to make was the sweet potato based barbecue chicken pizza. I make the base first by steaming the sweet potato. I'll come back and finish this recipe later. Again, this recipe is on my website. This week I decided to try and make individual chocolate and raspberry pancake bakes. I have loved them this week. You can use the base recipe and add what you like. You can try white chocolate and maybe blueberries. You can keep it plain and top with some melted peanut butter and jam or some fresh fruit. I enjoyed mine heated up in the microwave for 90 seconds and a drizzle of maple syrup. To make these the single serve version, so I made 5 of them, but the single serve version is just 1 egg, 50 grams of vanilla yogurt. I used YoPro high protein yogurt, 70 mils of almond milk, 60 grams of plain flour, 1 tablespoon of brown sugar, half a tablespoon of baking powder, 2 tablespoons of chocolate chips, and 2 tablespoons of frozen raspberries. I made it all in one big bowl and then divided it between the 5 dishes. Again, I used the IKEA 365 range and the square ones, and they were the 600ml version. My kids are still on school holidays, and so I made some raspberry jelly to keep in the fridge as a sweet treat for them, and I made some raspberry protein panna cottas for a sweet treat for me at nights. They're super easy. They're 2 ingredients. I use sugar-free jelly with YoPro vanilla yogurt. Follow the instructions on the packet of the right amount of boiling water. I dissolve the crystals, and then instead of putting any cold water, don't put any cold water in, just replace that amount with yogurt and whisk. Add to your individual snack containers, place a lid on, and put them in the fridge to set. I eat mine topped with frozen raspberries. I then moved back on to making the orange cake. So now the oranges had cooled down a little bit, I placed the boiled oranges into my Breville Kitchen Whiz food processor, one of my favorite appliances in the kitchen, and I blitzed until almost smooth. As I mentioned earlier, this recipe is found on taste.com. If you just type in whole orange cake, it'll come up. Please let me know if you try it. I also had one of my followers on TikTok let me know that she made this recipe or very similar and added chocolate to it, and it made it into more of like a Jaffa cake. That's definitely something I'm going to try next time too. I added some milk and then continued to blitz until smooth. I placed in a bowl, added the eggs, melted butter, sifted in the dry ingredients, and then stirred it to combine. I poured it into a prepared cake pan and then baked it in the oven. This orange cake was so delicious. I think because of the whole oranges in it, it was really, really moist and stayed that way for the last couple of days. We also top it with icing at the very, very end, which you'll see. We're about halfway through the cook now, and so the breakfast and lunch meals are made. The jelly and panna cottas are setting. The orange cake is in the oven. I'm just going to finish off the pizza base by mashing up the sweet potato, adding the eggs, flour, and some salt. This dough is not like a normal pizza dough. It's really sticky, so don't use your hands or feel like you need to add more flour. Just keep mixing and it will come together. You then spread on a baking tray lined with some baking paper, and then you place in the oven until the edges start to go brown. As always, don't forget to clean up as you go. It just makes such a difference at the end. I really can't stress that anymore. I allow anywhere between 1 and 3 hours on a Sunday to do all my prep, and it pretty well includes all the dishes as well. There's normally minimal dishes at the very end. There's already been a load of dishes run through the dishwasher, and I hand wash some of the other items like my food processor. You may be able to put that in the dishwasher, but I like to keep that out and just hand wash. Here I'm using the food processor to finely grate some carrot and zucchini and some onion. I'm going to be actually using that in the lasagna soup that I'm going to be making. So I wanted some hidden veg. I've never made lasagna soup, so this was a bit of an experiment, but I used my normal lasagna recipe as a bit of a base. So you can also find that recipe on my website, and then I turned that into a soup by adding a lot more of the beef stock. I added some more tin tomatoes, and I added the pasta sheets directly to the dish itself to cook in all that liquid, which is not something I've ever done before. And then I added more stock at the end to make it more liquidy. So there was a big trend on TikTok going around with lasagna soup, so I thought I'd try it out, but I wanted to do a lot of hidden veg in there, so you'll see my recipe up on my website. And yes, of course, this is me cleaning again. I did get asked quite often how long it takes me to clean, and I realized that I wasn't actually putting the cleaning side of things in my videos, so I thought I'd actually add that or keep that in my video just to show you that I actually do that as I am cooking and prepping. While the pizza was cooking in the oven, I moved on to cooking the chicken to top the pizza with. If you need to be hands-free when you're cooking your chicken, just place your chicken however you want it cut in a bowl, drizzle with olive oil and add some Moroccan seasoning and put it in the air fryer. It's really helpful. I then finished off the lasagna soup by breaking up some lasagna sheets to cook with the meat and added some more stock. I just added the pasta straight in, gave it a stir and allowed that to simmer away while I finished off the other meals. It was then time to take out my pizza base, so it's nice and brown and crisped on the edges. The whole base itself won't go super crispy, but it is delicious and you can get the edges to be nice and crispy. I just top it with some barbecue sauce, some red onion, capsicum, the chicken, some mushroom and some cheese. If you actually want a vegetarian version of this, you can just leave off the chicken and add whatever else you like, and you can add your different sauces, whatever you want, or some herbs on top as well. I just place it back in the oven for about 10 minutes until the cheese is all melted and delicious. The last meal that I made was the creamy harissa and chorizo tortellini. I started off by softening some onions with some garlic. I then added some chopped chorizo and some red capsicum and cooked until fragrant. I did a couple of dishes while that was all cooking. I added some harissa, coconut cream, tomato paste, and gave it a stir. I allowed that to simmer for a little bit, and then I added some spinach. Once the tortellini was cooked, I added that to the sauce and stirred to coat the pasta. Out of all the meals that I'm going to make this week, this is the one dish that the kids won't eat because it is a bit spicy. So instead I bought them some mini hot dogs to have mini hot dogs and a platter plate. I was also just gently frying off a little bit of halloumi to top my Nandos chicken and halloumi rice bowls. Whenever I make lasagna, I normally do a white sauce. So this time I wanted to do still a white version of a sauce. So what I did is I added some smooth ricotta cheese with some grated tasty cheese and added in some parsley and salt and pepper. And then I used that to top lasagna soup to just give it that little bit of creaminess, but keeping it on the healthier side. And to finish off my meal prepping, Olivia and I made a simple orange icing to top the cake. I allowed it to cool in the container, topped it with icing, and stored it in the fridge. And that is everything that I made for my Sunday reset. I was really happy with this week. I have breakfast and lunches prepped for work week. I've got 3 dinners for Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. And then I've got some nice snacks for the family to have as well. And then I'll do a couple of other dinners throughout the week. I hope you enjoyed, and if you do love this, please subscribe and let me know in the comments.